All right, Coach Lee here. We're going to talk about one of my absolute favorite concepts of coaching and training, yet it's one of those concepts that athletes just don't want to talk about. It's one of my favorite concepts, but not necessarily new athletes who have come to me. Before we jump into that, hey, my contact information is below. Please reach out to me if you have any coaching questions whatsoever. You want to talk about coaching, you want to talk about consulting. I am a full-time coach, meaning I don't have a side job. I'm not an engineer on the side or anything like that. I am a full-time coach. This is what I do for my full-time occupation, and would love to talk to you and hear what you have to say, answer your coaching questions, or if you just want to an hour session. Let's consult. Let's talk about all that kind of stuff. All right, the aerobic reset. Let's jump into this, okay? So basically, what are we trying to do when we're training? This is a great chart. This comes from Andrew Coggin's Training and Racing Using a Power Meter, an Introduction in 2003. This is his seminal article, once again, back in 2003, where he really introduces his concepts of, and that had been developed through lots of discussions on the internet at this time, lots of forums, lots of colleagues, his vast experience of training in the lab, training himself, training with years with the power meter. And so this is the first attempt for him to lay out, what is it that the power meter can give us, okay? And so what he does is he looks at the basic physiological things that we're trying to develop as endurance cycling athletes, and he lays out a zone system where those are developed, okay? And so as cyclists, this is, what we're trying to do. We're not just trying to give you big quads or big glutes or anything like that. We're trying to increase your plasma volume. We're trying to increase your mitochondrial enzymes, your lactate threshold. We're trying to increase your muscle glycogen storage, right? And then all of these, and then all of the zones where this can happen. So your zone 4 is roughly, your FTP, your threshold, and then above. And so, if you take a new athlete and they're looking at this, a lot of the athletes and that come to me brand new, this is sort of how they're training. They're training too much in 4, 5, 6, and even 7, and completely ignoring the endurance zone and the tempo zone. And so basically what happens is that there's two things that are happening here. They're training with too much fatigue, okay? So your body, to adapt, to get better, gets better in the recovery process, right? So stress plus rest equals adaptation. So if you're working out too hard every single workout, your body simply can't adjust to that fatigue. Okay, so that's one problem with this. The other problem with this is that they're not developing their aerobic engine. So if you think of all your zones like 4, 5, and 6, they sit on top of this big diesel aerobic engine. And if you don't have that big diesel aerobic engine, then your upper zones, your all the things that we're trying to develop in you, they're stunted, if you will. So those are the two main problems with training too hard. A, too much fatigue, and B, you're not developing that aerobic engine. So what is an aerobic reset? The aerobic reset is simply, I get an athlete who's training too hard, and it's usually, I've been getting a lot of these athletes from Trainer Road lately, where I can go back and look at all their workouts, and they're just these intense interval workouts, one after another, and then the group ride on the weekend. And so literally they're killing themselves, and they come to me and they're like, I'm doing all this work, but I've hit a plateau. I just don't seem to be getting better. And so when I look at their data, depending on where they are, it's all about, okay, we have to stop exactly what you're doing and do the exact opposite. So if they're training way too much in 4, 5, 6, and 7, and just always killing it, we have to, in order to develop that aerobic engine and all those physiological adaptations that we need, we have to basically reverse their process. And this is why athletes don't necessarily like to talk about this, because they become very attached to their style of training. They become very attached to those Tuesday puke workouts, Thursday puke workouts, Saturday puke group ride. And they think, they've been doing it for so many years. That's really what they become attached to. So when I see this, this is the ultimate test for me and my sales ability, if you will, in order to talk them out of that way of training and to embrace a different type of training. Example, I just got a guy. He has been with me a couple months, like 3 months, and he fit that exact profile. He was training too hard. And I could go through all of his workouts and show him, man, like, on a 8 out of 9, on a scale from 0 to 10, this workout 10, this workout 10, this workout 10, this workout 10. Like every workout was a workout of 10 or above. And so basically, you just can't adapt physically to that because you're just driving yourself with too much fatigue, okay? And so here's a very nice, as he came to me, I always look, when I get a new athlete, I always look at their time and zones, their discipline. Where are they accumulating their time and zones? And so as we can see, like this is a typical kind of a in-race profile. So like if you do a race, like a crit race or something like that, or a strong group ride, this is basically what's happening. You're either not developing your physiological systems or you're going way too hard. And so this athlete, when he came to me, we had to have that discussion and we had to have the aerobic reset discussion. And it's a hard sell for me as a coach, again, because they come to me with a certain style of training and that we have to completely 180-degree reverse their process. And so with this particular athlete, that's exactly what we did. So here's the data from his last 30 days, and you can see the difference. What is it? We've got endurance. We've got more endurance and in tempo, and he's still doing group rides. And so we still have, I would argue, a little bit too much up here and still a little too much right here. And so for, zone 1, often called junk miles, right? I want to maximize an athlete's time out on the bike. So I really only like to see this at about 25%, right? Because there's the warm up, there's the cool down, there's going through stoplights. So if I can get their zone 1 down to 25% and just move all of this to here, zone 2, bingo, right? We've got him nailed, all right? And so when we look at what a pro does, a professional does for a year, when we look at sort of, and this is a lot of just empirical data, when we look at, the athletes who do the best, we can see that, if we take up all of their accumulated zones throughout the entire year, about 90% of their time is in zone 2 and zone 3. The rest of the 10% is doing FTP intervals. It is doing VO2 max intervals. It is doing anaerobic capacity intervals, things like that, okay? And so 90% of your time, of the entire year, and you're racing and you want to go to national championships and things like that, this is basically kind of what I've found and what others have found, what the pros are doing is the best way to do it. So now we look back at right here, he is at 365 days. He's either going super hard, not hard at all, and this tells me that he's not developing his anaerobic or his aerobic engine, that his aerobic engine is not there. And so we begin the great aerobic reset. And so again, this is hard because this is in the middle of the season. This is his summer. And basically, what am I doing? We're going back to foundation building, diesel engine building. We're basically taking him all the way back to, the types of workouts, the routines, the process that you would do over the winter months. And we're taking him back and just giving him an aerobic reset. All right. So what happens when we do this? All right, so here's his last week, okay? And we can see where he's getting this, where he's starting to get on the program. He's finding the routes that he can do where he can really just settle in and nail his endurance. Now, he's still doing some group rides, and you see that right here. So, once a week, once a week or twice a week, he's still doing the group rides, and he's still accumulating right here. But look at this. We have much better time and zones, power discipline, however you want to talk about power performance, zone discipline, all these different ways that you can talk about this, but we're slowly moving him to a different way to train where he can go from something like this, move to this, move to this. Now, what's the benefit? Well, he did have a plateau. So even though he's out there killing it and he's a tremendous athlete 5 days a week, he's killing it, he's killing it. His FTP was relatively low, I believe, for what he's capable of doing, simply because FTP, it's a measurement. It's the metric that measures your aerobic engine. So we have all these metrics that we look at. FTP, diesel engine. What is the state of your aerobic engine? That's, the great FTP, the great metric for that is FTP. So he does have an FTP that's low because he's been out there killing it. He's been, he's got a great sprint numbers, all that great stuff, but his FTP was actually low. And so basically in a couple of months, we, when a new athlete comes to me, we test him, we do baseline testing, and then, every month we test. And so after the first month, FTP goes up a little bit. After 2 months, the FTP dramatically goes up. And so basically with this particular athlete, he had never worked his aerobic engine, that FTP. Now, the great benefit of this is that his sprint with that aerobic engine, on the other side, the anaerobic side, everything is going to be stronger. Everything is going to be higher because you have that big aerobic engine. It allows everything else to go higher, right? Higher VO2, faster, stays longer, sticks longer with your body because you have developed that strong foundation. Also with his glycolytic capacity, those short burns up to a minute, or his sprint, how he's using that energy system, the ATP PC system, where that 10-second burn, 12-second all-out burn, how he's using that, all of that goes up by building that big aerobic engine. All right, guys, if you have any questions about with me, the aerobic capacity is a fantastic concept. I'm sorry, the aerobic reset. It's not what an athlete usually wants to hear. An athlete usually wants to hear, oh, there's this secret workout. Oh, there's this secret thing that you can do as a coach to take what I'm doing and get even better. Well, there's really no secret workouts. There's no secret plans. The idea is that we just have to follow basic physiological principles and establish those principles, develop that engine, and then build everything on top. So this particular athlete, I assigned him 4 months of base training in the year, foundation building, so that he can have a better sprint, so that he can have a higher anaerobic capacity, glycolytic capacity. And he is a sprinter. That's what he wants to do. And so we're building him all up. We're going to give him that fatigue resistance that he needs to have to get to the finish line. And we're going to do that all by layering up his physiological systems from the base, from ground zero. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. And reach out to me if you have any